Sorry. This video is talking about the 5-number summary. So we've talked already about measures of center. Those are things like the mean, the median, the mode, and the range, which tell about where your data is located, or the average. It's a way to summarize a bunch of data with one number. But that's not a super accurate picture. So instead we use a 5-number summary. And a 5-number summary demonstrates the range of data and the shape of the data's distribution. So it talks about how far apart your data is and where does most of your data lay. Is it condensed? Is it spread out? How spread out? Is it spread out in some areas and more condensed in others? Okay, so looking at a bigger picture of what is this data story? Okay. There are 5 elements to a 5-number summary. The first is the minimum, which is something that should be familiar. And the minimum is the smallest number in a set of data. Okay? The opposite of the minimum is the maximum, which is the biggest number in a set of data. And we are familiar with median as well, which is that number that is in the middle. Okay? So when we put them in order, it is the number that is in the middle. Okay, remembering to have them going from smallest to largest. Now our quartile 1 and quartile 2 sometimes get another name, okay, and that would be called the lower or the upper quartile. So you might also see it saying lower quartile and upper quartile. And what I mean is that we are going to take our values if you think about the median is splitting our data in half, we're then going to split it in half again. So our lower quartile is the median value between the minimum and the median. Quartile 3, or the upper quartile, is the median between the median and the maximum. So we're taking a set of data and we're splitting it into 4 equal sections. Quartiles, if you think about the word quart means 4. So we are taking the middle of a half of a set of data and splitting the data into 4 equal groups. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But splitting our data into 4 equal groups. So I have some data I collected about how many siblings a person has. And my data said 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 6, 6. Okay? So that one person has 1 sibling, 2 siblings, 2 siblings, 3 siblings, 4 siblings, 5 siblings, 6, or not 5, 6 twice. Okay? So I can easily find my minimum, that's my smallest number, and my maximum, which is 6. To find the median, I'm going to take my data and I'm going to find the middle number. Now, because we're going to use our numbers again, I'm not going to cross them off. I'm just going to put x's. So xx, xx, xx. And I wind up with this number 3 in the middle. So that is my median, 3. Okay. Then I'm going to find my lower quartile. So to find my lower quartile, I am not going to include my median value. So I'm going to look at every number smaller than my median, and I'm going to find the middle of that. So my middle number is 2. And I'm going to do the same thing for the numbers that are bigger. Exit, exit, 6. So we're finding that middle number and then the middle of the middle. Okay, so I get 3 values. These values are going to be represented in something called a box and whisker plot. The first step in a box and whisker plot is to label the values. So I have values from 1 to 6. So I'm going to label 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and maybe I'll put some extra numbers on here. So I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now is the point where if you are listening to the movie or the video, instead of just watching, if you are listening, please write the word lamp and turn it into Miss Holmes, and I will give you a prize. So thank you for listening as well as watching. So you're going to label the data or the line. Then you are going to plot quartile 1, the median, and the quartile 3. So my quartile 1 was at 2. My median was at 3. And my quartile 3 was at 6. I'm then going to connect them to make a box or a rectangle. Okay. And then lastly, I'm going to include the maximum and the minimum. Now for this set of data, my maximum happens to be at the same point, so I don't have to do anything different because I already am including that in my quartile. My minimum is at 1, so I'm going to put a line at 1, and I'm going to connect that. This piece here represents a minimum, and it shows me the range of my data. Okay? Each piece of my data set is equal to each piece of my box and whisker plot is equal to 25% of the data, which means that 25% of the data lives within the piece between the minimum and the quarter 3. 25% lives between the quarter 1 and the median. 25% lives between the median and the Q3, and another 25% lives between Q3 and the maximum, which happens to be the same. So even though this section on the right is bigger than the section on the left, it contains the same amount of data, meaning that more of our data is condensed on the left and it's more spread out on the right. Okay, so that's an example of a box and whisker plot. We happen to have the maximum and the Q3 the same value. So we're going to do one that is a little bit different. I have a situation, we have an odd number of data points here, and you'll notice there's something different that happens when we have an odd number versus an even number. So copy down those numbers, and then we're going to start by finding our 5-number summary. So I start with my minimum, that's my smallest number, and my maximum, which is 10. And then I'm going to find my median, so I'm going to go crossing it off on both sides an equal amount until I end up with one number in the middle. So my median is 4. Whenever you have an odd number of data points, you will have an exact value for the median. And you'll see the opposite of that in a second, okay? So my median is 4. Now I'm going to find my lower quartile, or my quartile 1, okay? Sometimes we call this the lower quartile, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my values and I'm going to look at everything to the left of my median, not including my median. So I cross off the ends, and then I'm left with these 2 numbers in between. Because there's not an actual median value, we're going to look at what number is living between 2 and 3, and it happens to be 2.5. That is halfway between 2 and 3. So that is my lower quartile, or quartile 1, and you'll see that show up here. Okay, the last piece we need to find is our quartile 3. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to look at all the values to the right of my median and find what's in the middle. Okay, well, I'm left with 5 and 6. The number that is in between or in the middle is 5.5. So my quartile 3 is 5.5. Now that I have all these values, I can draw my box and whisker plot. So I'm going to plot along the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Your goal is to have your data spread out evenly throughout the bottom, although it's not always easy to do that. So as long as your data sections between each number are pretty similar, it is okay. So we labeled, now we're going to add our median and our lower quartile and our quartile 3 or our upper quartile. So I have a line at 2.5. That's our Q1. I have a line at 4 for our median. And I have a line at 5.5 for our quartile 3. Now I'm going to connect those. Oh, this should say Q3. Q3. Okay. Lastly, I'm going to add my minimum, which is at 2, and my maximum, which is at 10. Now remember, each component of our box and whisker plot contains 25% of our data. So 25% of our data, lives here. 25% lives here. 25 lives between median and Q3, and then 25% lives in this whole section here. What that means is that my data is more condensed. 75% of my data lives between 2 and 5.5, and 25% lives in the rest. So our data is super duper condensed into that area from the Q3 onward. Okay. Now we're going to look at a situation where we have an even number of data points. So this was a question that asked about the average age or the age of people in the room. Okay. And so copy down that data, and then we're going to find our 5-number summary. So those 5 numbers that tell us about the data. Well, my minimum is 14. My maximum is 24, so I have a range of 10. And then I'm going to go find my median. So I'm finding that number in the middle. I'm going to X off each side of it. And I end up with these 2 numbers in between. Because I have 2 numbers in between, I'm going to find the number in between them. There is no median number. So instead, it's the number in between both of them, which happens to be 16.5. So what you will notice is that when you have an even number of data points, the median is between 2 remaining values. Ooh, I wrote that a little goofy. Okay. It's not a value, a data point itself, it's a part in between. Okay. And then I'm going to find my lower quartile. So again, I'm going to do that same process of crossing them off. This time I don't have a median to worry about, but I am going to include that 16 in the process. So 16 and 14 get crossed off, the 15s get crossed off, and I'm left with 15 for my Q1. Oh my goodness, what am I doing here? Q1. Same process over here. 17 gets included in the process. So I get a Q3 of 18. And you will see that matches with the data. Finally, I'm going to draw a box and whisker plot using that information. So I'm going to start by labeling the bottom, 13, 14, 15. And then I'm going to indicate my key pieces. So I have my quartile 1, my median, my quartile 2, or 3, sorry. My minimum, and my maximum way over here at 24, which again says that 25% of my data is here, 25% in each section. So my data is more condensed to the left, and we'll talk more about what that means in the future. Right now we're focused on building our box and whisker plots using our 5-number summaries.